I'm Nick Hughes, and this is Founders Live Conversations.
Hey everyone, welcome to Founders Live Conversations. I am Nick Hughes. I am the founder and CEO of Founders Live. And I'm here today talking with another finalist for Founders Livefest 2020. I want to bring in the special guest of the day, Gianender Khanna from Brain Racers. He's the CEO of Brain Racers, and he's joining us from Toronto, Canada. GK, as we call him. How you doing today?
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Nick. Doing great. Super excited to be here and talk more with you about Brain Racers, Founders Live, and everything. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You know, I want to welcome GK here as not only the winner of a Founders Live Toronto event, but also a winner of the Founders Live Primetime North America, one of the two events that we had earlier this fall. Welcome to the show. Can't wait to jump into more conversation with you. But first and foremost, tell us a little bit about yourself, just a brief background and a bio.
Yeah, for sure. So, I'll just go back a little bit into my history. I grew up in India and Sri Lanka, and about 12, 13 years ago, I moved over to North America. I spent time in the US and in Canada for the last 8 years in Toronto. In the US, I was around Atlanta, Chicago, moving around for work and school. I've been here last 8 years, and my background, I've studied industrial engineering, but I'm super passionate about gaming. I've been creating games since I was a little kid, like from cards, dice, intellectual games and game structures. And more recently, I've brought that passion into my interest with business and entrepreneurship and triggered that towards Brain Racers, which I'm sure we'll talk about more. So that's a brief background, and happy to share more, as we go on.
Yeah, I love it, man. There's an interesting history of, your company, and, even as I, traveled around in 2019, I traveled to many cities back in the time when we could really more safely travel. And,
the world tour.
I took a world tour for Founders Live. It was really, really fun. And I swung through Toronto for just a few days, and I was at the Founders Live Toronto event that you ended up winning. So, what I would like to do first is get your experience around not only pitching in person and then pitching, and then digitally, virtually with the primetime event. Just tell us a little bit more about that experience.
Yeah, for sure. So, as you mentioned, we pitched at the Toronto Founders Live event, which was back in 2019, and definitely super lucky that you were able to make it through, the same timing. And pitching in front of people, I'm sure you may have heard this, and others would have mentioned things like this, but it's a lot more personal. There's a lot more energy that you can read, because you're seeing people, and it's not all conscious, but you're seeing their reactions, and you're kind of interacting with the audience very live, and then having that energy allows you to kind of gel with the audience better. And if they have any questions, or something's not clear, then you can take care of that and make sure that the message that you want to deliver, the pitch that you want to give, all of it can be optimized, because you're getting a lot of feedback, and you can like respond to that and react to that. When you move digital, you don't have much of that feedback. In fact, I don't even know if you get any real feedback. So it's all about, then I find for myself that it's about going internal. It's about, making sure that you have clarity and that passion, you bring that out in your pitch, and you disregard, maybe the audience thinking whatever. You just bring out your A game, and then, let the cards fall where they may. So that's one of the big differences. And don't get me wrong, even in a live pitch, you have to bring the passion, the energy, all of it. But it's like I would assume it's like when a rock star or an artist is on stage and has, all of these people and fans, and, it energizes the entire stadium and audience. So at a smaller scale, us entrepreneurs and CEOs get a taste of that. And it happens more in a live event. So the passion and everything's there, but you can adjust with it. Whereas in a virtual, you don't get all that. So it's one of the big differences.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up, because you are one of the few that had both the in-person physical experience of pitching and then the digital, and
Yeah,
there's differences.
yeah,
What I'd
absolutely.
like to do, is bring up a few of your experience tips or lessons learned as you've
Yeah,
pitched at Founders Live a few times.
yeah,
Sum up when you prepare to give your 99-second pitch. What did you find really worked well for you as
yeah.
you were preparing for the delivering the pitch?
Yeah, I think this is a great question, Nick, because the timing of this pitch, 99 seconds, it's not a lot. Even if it sounds like a lot, to get like a message out with clarity, it's not a lot. So what helped me beyond the basics of practice, right? Just because everything has a time limit, the more you can practice, the better you get. But it's about cutting out what is not necessary, focusing on what are the important pieces you want to share. You won't get to share everything. I don't think that's even the goal or the attempt. This is an opportunity, to show all the awesome audience that, this is the vision, this is how far you are, and all, any key factors that you may want to share. So one of the big tips I would give anyone is don't try to share everything you've done. I know it feels good because you've put work and you want to validate it by sharing with the world. I don't mean this in any bad way, but nobody cares. People have a lot of things to do. You need to focus on what are the key messages, what are the key points, and then how to effectively deliver them. If you do that, you will give yourself the best chance, at least for this kind of framework, for the audience to vote in your favor. So quick tips. Yeah.
You're absolutely right. It's
Yeah.
not that they don't care, it's that they
Sorry, I
don't.
didn't mean to. Yeah.
No, it's like,
Yeah.
the meme where it's like no one got time for that, and it's
That's
like
it. That's it.
no one's got time for your half an hour spiel or even your
Yeah.
10-minute spiel.
Yeah.
What we have time for though is a short, quick bite of tell me why I should actually really care about what you're bringing to the world.
That's right.
What value do you bring? How are you
Yeah.
solving these problems and why should I
Yeah.
care? And
Absolutely.
what we found with Founders Live and the 99 seconds is just a sweet spot of that amount of time. So that's so great.
Yeah.
What I
Yeah.
want to do is shift a little bit to, the next question here. Why did you choose entrepreneurship? Why did you choose to dive in and create your own company? And then we'll get into even the industry and what you're building, but why entrepreneurship?
Yeah. I'm gonna answer this in two parts really quickly. The first one is I don't have an analyzed rationale for you, but you just some people I think just have a bug. They want to create, they want to bring value to the world, and someone like me, I've grown and evolved in a way where I see gaps everywhere, even industrial engineering. It's essentially all about optimization and efficiency, and then anything else I've done in my life towards meditation, it's all been about self-improvement and improvement. So my mind has evolved to see gaps everywhere, and I believe that's a great way to set up businesses, because if you see gaps, that's where like value can be brought. And because I have such a strong passion towards business and within that marketing and operations, but those are not as important details, but that passion and seeing gaps, it was just an internal drive that I want to get into entrepreneurship. I want to create something, I want to create a business, and do good for the world in doing so. So that was like the internal bug, I would say, that kind of like feeling that you just want to do it, and that's a big thing. And then more specifically, when I analyzed it, then it becomes more about your time in life, your phase, what exactly are you going to do. So I am fortunately blessed that I was able to take the plunge and move towards entrepreneurship, because it does take a few years. You do have to find a way to support yourself and live life, whether it's a little bit of money if your company makes it from the start, or other resources, your savings, whatever it may be. So same thing for myself. I had to plan that, and then it made sense that what, take the plunge now, with all the factors considered, and give it a few years and then take it from there. So yeah.
Yeah, and I would definitely suggest that there is an interesting aspect to entrepreneurship that people get pulled into it. You know, when I hear people say, I want to be an entrepreneur, and you know they're almost forcing the issue, and you know there might be some people listening or watching that might fall into that category, and I would just tell you that you know you want to ask why, right? And what I
Yeah.
find with most of the impactful founders that end up building very impactful and successful businesses is they just could not do it.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you have answered a bit of that call to say, I just I need to see this in the world, and no one
That's
else
right.
is gonna build it. And
That's
you
right.
know that I think that's really interesting, which leads us to tell us about brain racers. And you know this might be a good place to say that as you notice on his name, that it was initially, and you know when you pitched both at Toronto and North America, it was Quiklee.
That's right.
So tell us why you started Quiklee, and more importantly, what did you see in the world that needed to be here?
Yeah, okay. A lot of questions in there. So I'll just start with a quick story from a few years ago when all of this started. We were, having a normal random dinner conversation about education and the pros and cons of the education structure. And it moved towards like learning and cognition, all kind of like the interesting topics, And this conversation left me with this headspace that I want to put my mental energy towards evolving learning and education in any way I can. And fast forward a couple of years, as we researched more and gave it more thought, we realized that there's a gap in the society, I would say, in how we celebrate brain athletes and brain champions versus how we look at physical athletes. And this is nothing wrong in this. Physical sports and physical athletes have been around for thousands of years. And, in the last 150 years, the industry has matured and evolved into entertainment megastructures, right? From NFL, NHL, NBA, you have English Premier League soccer, IPL cricket, like it's all over the world. And you have these structures that, allow superstars to emerge. And then these superstars, they inspire millions of people, especially kids, but everyone to follow their footsteps. So what happens inherently is that because of this entertainment structure and how we put these physical superstars on a pedestal, we celebrate them, and it's cool, to be in athletics. It's cool to be a football player, NBA player. So that's normal progression. And when it comes to brain, competitions or intellectual competitions, a few have had their progress and made a name: chess, poker. I would even consider shows like Jeopardy, where Buzzy Cohen had a long stretch, and a very, very powerful show. And sorry, just to mention, Alex Trebek recently passed away, so rest in peace. And, one of the best hosts. But these intellectual championships, they've only, come up more recently. And I believe that the world is ripe for, an awesome global competition around brain performance, right? A sort of a brain Olympics in the making. So when we realize this gap, we're like, well, we can't go and create everything. I mean, I don't know the top entertainment people of the world yet, right? So it's not like we can just go and like build the brain Olympics with like $10 million and go and do it. So what we did was we analyzed deeper, and we chose a starting point, like a lot of startups do, right? You focus, you narrow down, and we chose races. Because when you look at, for example, Olympics, the mass viewership gets attracted to the sprints, Usain Bolt, or the 4x100 relays. And we saw races have, a very energized feel to them. When you're racing, people can catch up, and, the underdog, and then the sprints at the end and catches up. Like, it's very, very energizing. In fact, in 776 BC, when the first Olympics were held, the games at Olympia, they only had races, a day full of just heats on heats of racing. They may have had a little bit of javelin and stuff that they started introducing, but the main core was all racing. And then, the top guys go to the finals. So we decided to take that parallel and make it for brain performance, aka brain racers. And that's what we're working on. And, it's still early, but that vision has become more clear. And over the last few months, it's just been, now we know what we are. Let's just go and hammer it in. So I'll just touch a little bit on Quiklee versus brain racers.
Yeah.
So we initially started with a very basic prototype. It was a single player game just with some cognitive modules, and we called it Quiklee. It had a theme of karate for the mind, and it was more of a casual, cognitive and learning app. And we wanted to test the waters and make sure that there's interest in content like this, in cognitive modules like this. And that got validated pretty early on. There was a good core bunch of players who would play a lot, and we had no daily challenges, we had no reward structure, we had just base content and base game, like that's it. And we still saw players playing. So then that gave us like the first check mark. And then over 2019, I started like kind of building a team slowly. And then, as we evolved and we had more discussions about our brand and what we want to be, Brain Racers was almost an obvious winner. It was just a matter of when do we make the switch, because it's more intuitive, it's more aligned with the experience and exactly what we're doing. And so, recently we made the call that, we're going to shift now. And now let's take things to the next level with Brain Racers.
Yeah, thank you for that background. And, it
course.
really helps not only me, but, obviously everyone else. And, look, all companies go through evolution. They go
Yes.
through, the first version, and
Yeah.
not only it's absolutely okay to change brand names, but it's probably expected. So,
Yes.
I definitely think that. So where is this heading? When you look at the esports industry, and that's really gaming, and some of
Yeah.
those are more very intense multiplayer games online.
Absolutely.
um where does more Brain Racers, where does this fit into that entire industry, and what can we expect as you look out another few years, 3 to 5 years out?
Yeah.
What would you like to see, not only in the industry, but from what you offer to the industry?
Right. So again, phenomenal question. Esports is growing so fast, 40% a year, and expected to continue booming for the next, 10 years, even way, way longer. And we play as a subset of esports, what we call cognitive esports. This is a relatively new market there, at least in the digital space. And don't get me wrong, there are plenty of cognitive games that have been around, but cognitive esports as an industry is still relatively new, which we believe gives us a great edge because we can pioneer it and create it however we want to. And that leads me to what I see for the next 3 to 5 years. I believe there's going to be epic brain based competitions, just like Fortnite rented out Arthur Ashe Stadium, held their massive tournament, best of the best coming together. First place, $3 million. That 16-year-old kid took it. We want to generate that same thing for cognitive esports, and at the core of it will be brain racers, brain racing. Because again, if you think of like Olympics, not to reuse that example, but there's racing, but then they have all the other sports as well, from triple jump to basketball to everything, right? You add slowly. Same thing for our direction and vision is we're going to start with brain racers, and in the short term we're going to create more competitions around brain racing, which is going to be heats, and then you qualify for the monthly championship and you can win money and a chance to go to bigger and bigger championships. So as those championships evolve, the idea is they turn more and more into spectacles, with commentary and highlights and data. Just like you have analysis of baseball players and basketball players, you will have analysis of brain racers. Nick came in and he was on the podium. We've seen him perform in the 90th percentile for puzzles and attention to detail, where he falls behind is a little bit of pattern recognition, and let's see how he's going to do today, like that kind of commentary. That's the idea, is to make these championships and these monthly tournaments into bigger and bigger spectacles. And as that evolves, when we get to more of the 3-year timeline and the 5-year timeline, it's about adding more entertainment, flavor to it. It's about adding more cognitive sports to it, so that now you become a broader championship, with races still happening, being awesome and a core, but you build more around it, all on a digital landscape. So some of this is already happening, Nick. We're not the only, in a broader sense, like Mind Sports Olympiad is in UK. There's another brain championship that just started last year. Apologies, I'm forgetting the name, but I'll remember it for next time we talk. But there are a couple that are already, starting to do this. And there will be a few that'll be the leaders. We believe racing can have a massive, massive growth potential, which will allow us to really evolve it into, these brain championships. And in 3 to 5 years, we want to be a household name. We want people from all over the world, all walks of life. It doesn't matter your gender, your age, your social class, none of that should matter. Right? It's equal opportunity. You come, you have that equal opportunity to perform and show how you're the best. And that's what we want. We want kids and parents sending their kids. We want schools being like, why aren't our students, participating in brain racers? We want countries being like, why aren't we in there, competing? So when we get into that stage, I get very passionate because it's all vision and, it's all like exciting stuff. We have a lot of things to do to get there, but that's what we want. We want that super exciting feel and everybody to be, involved in it and watching it too, not just playing, watching it too. If their kids are playing or their peers are playing. Yeah.
This is really exciting. And I that's why I just love talking with you, man, because I think that there's so much here. It's so great. A question I have, or a direction I want to take is, I'm just calling it everyday improvement. But when you think about, you talk about Olympics, you talk about like, mind racers and brain racers and things that, people now are like, well, I won't make that competition, but how can I use the product to improve myself every day? Talk to us about that.
Well, yeah, very, very good direction. So the entertainment and all the brain races and the championships we talk about, we believe that can be very attractive. So that's meant to attract people, not just the top of the top champions, Nick. You can also have leagues, right? And then areas can have their leagues, or difficulties can have their leagues, so that people don't always have to be chasing the top 1%. They can participate in different leagues. Why I just wanted to mention that, because I don't want, we have to be cognizant not to scare people away if it's only like meant for like the top of the top minds. That's not what it's meant to be, right? So that's why I just wanted to mention that point. And when we think about self-improvement, there's going to be a lot of that allowed on the platform. Let me give you some examples. So I mentioned we collect data, right? So we know how every player plays every module, and using that, we can build you a personal cognitive identity, a sort of a dashboard. So you can see, just like we look at our data for health, for step count, for sleep data, right? We look at all of that today. This will be your cognitive data. And you can see from two different perspectives. One is your knowledge pillar and your cognitive skills pillar. Your knowledge pillar is English, math, general knowledge, geography, science, all that. And it's all our content's already mapped to all the categories. On the cognitive skills side, you have attention to detail, pattern recognition, memory, logical reasoning, all of those, types of attributes. And all our content is mapped to that as well. So now, based on how you play, we will be able to create these cognitive profiles, these, dashboards for you. And we will curate specific races based on how you perform. The idea is that a lot of players may not care to come play competitively all the time, right? But because we have all this content, we have all of the mapping done, we can easily allow you to come and race, get your baselines, and then nudge you towards, play these races for your goals, or play these races for your cognitive, health. Right? So because all those factors come in, if it's cognitive health, you just want to keep your brain active, right? With some time pressure. Research has shown that the more you are under pressure and doing things with speed, the better it is for your mind, not just like, casually keeping it active. So tricks like that, like things like that, will allow us to guide you towards specific races. And it will be a personalized, kind of cognitive improvement platform, which we believe can have a lot of power. Like in the education space, especially with a lot of evolution happening now, this could become a new global cognitive identity that everyone just, shows. And depending on your level and depending on where you are, your cognitive identity allows you to do better in life, get into schools or jobs or whatever it is, right? So there is all that, potential, and we don't think too much about it. We think a lot about it, but we want to keep our focus. And in parallel, we're creating the dashboards, which we believe will allow self-improvement based individuals to use this a lot.
This is great. This is great. And I see many applications, not only from the young age, but, even as people get older and,
100%.
keeping that. Well,
100%.
we don't have too much time left. So what I would like to do is shift once more to a little bit of your advice. You're now, look, you're on your path. You're in the global finals for Founders Live, which is awesome. But you've gotten going, and you've actually brought a product, from a idea to MVP to now in market. Now you're getting users. You're growing. This is great. What pieces of advice would you share with, maybe yourself 2 or 3 years ago as you were getting going, and
Yeah.
what you've learned now? So let's go with two things that
Yeah.
you feel like that just jump out and you would have liked to know 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Yeah, no, yeah, solid questions. The two things that jumped out, so I'm just gonna answer them in no specific priority order. One is early on, you know, we built a product, like a prototype, but still it was a working product, and we put it out there. And then, we learned through the users playing, and eventually we started, going out there and showing it to people, like at a mall, and we'll interview them, or we'll have like a $10 challenge if you can beat the founder. Very, very simple stuff. I feel like that could have been done even earlier, and without even a full product, so that you can start talking to your potential customers and your potential users super, super early. Because that, first phase, there's a lot of evolution of thinking as well. Unless you have like one clear vision and you only want to pursue that, if you're taking feedback and you're, playing it, as it comes and evolving as it comes, being fluid with it, talking to your users or your potential users and your potential customers as early as possible would be the one thing I would tell myself, 2, 3 years ago. Because I was doing a lot of research intellectually. I was doing a lot of research on what's going on in market, all very valid, very useful stuff. And then I was doing my own deep thinking on it. But when you start speaking to people, you start getting such a broader range of perspective that it really helps a lot. The second piece, and this is more personal, maybe some people already do this or are better at it, is understanding the stages, so that especially when you start getting towards the investment stages, which are deep, like pockets, and $500,000 $1 million checks, that real first step towards taking it forward towards a global level, that has its own questions and what the investors look for. And I learned that more, in fact, in the last 9 months, because, I did talk to a lot of investors last year, and, we raised some money, a little bit from angels, a little bit from family and friends. And this 2020 was the first year where I spoke to serious institutional investors. And that gave me so much learning and eye-opening into what are the things that they look for. And don't get me wrong, Nick, and everybody else who's listening, like every company doesn't need institutional funding. You don't need VC funding. There's like lots of different ways to do a business. You can make revenue and profit. You can grow with, just simple funding or loans or grants. And you can also go for VC funding. We are the type of company that when our kind of game clicks, like HQ, which was a cognitive competition that 2, 3 years ago, that company grew in 18 months to $100 million, maybe about in 2 years approximately, after launch, by the way, not like before. But that's really, really fast, and like million users. So and this has happened repeatedly. So a game like ours suddenly gets exponential growth, and that aligns very well with the types of companies that VCs want to back. So for me, that route is very fitting, and I only learned a lot more about that landscape this year. So if I could go back 2 years and just start even bringing a couple of key people as an advisor, just because when you're early on, it would have helped me be at a higher stage, which is okay. You learn when you learn, and then you evolve, and then we go back for it. But those are the two things that came up in my head.
Yeah. Such good advice. And just to add on top of that real quick, so for the people watching and listening, and really just test earlier, test quicker, and get more feedback. Test quicker, test cheaper, get more feedback. That can never hurt you. So that's the number one. And then just knowing the phases, understanding, and obviously each new phase is a different dynamic, and
That's right.
you're just always learning on that. And that's why we have Founders Live. We've got
That's
a global platform, we got a global community. There's people that have gone before you, there's people that are in a slightly different phase as you, and so feel free to reach out to them, talk with them. And obviously with GK here, he's now on the Founders Livefest stage in December 2nd, 2020. So if you're listening to this or watching this before December 2nd, make sure you get your ticket and check it out. If you're listening after this, do a little search on Founders Live. You'll see a lot of the information and essentially what the result was and all that. So hey, GK, I want to give you the last word here. We're about done here.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Before I just jump in, like you added on perfectly. It's not always just the VCs and all. You can even talk to prior entrepreneurs who are ahead of you. So just wanted to reiterate that because it's such a good point. So yeah, and as far as the last word, honestly, we are so grateful, Nick, to you and the entire Founders Live team for creating these competitions and platforms. It helps us so much, not just presenting and having these conversations with you, which of course bring amazing value and lots of great things, but just it's a platform. You get to see other startups, you get to network, you get to grow yourself. There is so much, and we are just so lucky and blessed to have had the opportunity to present, and just looking forward to what comes next, man. We're in a stage right now, our product's almost ready. I mean, like the final polished version coming out in the next few weeks. We have some epic competitions coming. We have a couple of sponsors already, so things are like looking up for us. And so we're super excited. Everybody, please check out brainracers.gg. Sign up, and we'll let you know when the official launch happens. And as Nick already mentioned, December 2nd, it's the global finals, the Founders Livefest. Looks super exciting. I'm so excited, not just to present, but to share that experience with everybody else there. And I hope to see you, all of you, watching this as well. So thanks, Nick. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining us today. And yes, as we said, December 2nd, get your tickets at founderslivefest.eventbrite.com, and you'll see more information about that. And everyone else, check out Founders Live. Would love to have you join. There's many different membership options, from free to paid, up and above. And so check those out. And lastly, this has been Founders Live Conversations. We really, really appreciate you being here, listening, watching today. And hey, just everyone, stay healthy and stay safe.
100%. Thank you again. Take care, Nick. Thank you, everybody.